Hello and welcome to another edition of If Not Now When, live at home. I'm Shelby Davis.
And I'm Elizabeth Petrich.
And we're so excited to welcome you back to another episode. We had a little break, but we are back. Spring is kind of here. Maybe it's on its way soon, so we're excited about that. And we have another guest joining us. Elizabeth, how have you been?
Great. Just, I cannot believe that I'm a hermit. I've taken to it.
Right. Last time I saw you and we chatted, there was snow on the ground, but I think right now the leaves are starting to go away and everything's starting to bloom again.
I'm so thrilled. And the pool's open.
Wonderful. It feels like a brand new day.
It does.
Absolutely. And today we have a special guest joining us with our theme this week is Don't Dwell on Past Mistakes. So we have Bick joining us from Danbury, Connecticut. Ian, welcome to If Not Now When. Thank you for being here.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Ian, well, let's tell you a little about Ian. Ian is an entrepreneur and former owner of Tuxedo Junction, a live music venue, and it was just recently featured on HBO Max's Generation Hustle. A very good documentary, I must say. I watched it. Very good. Learned a lot. Okay. At 19 years old, Ian owned Tuxedo Junction, an iconic live music venue in Danbury, Connecticut. By the time he turned 21, he was sentenced to 36 months in federal prison. Now, 26, Ian has learned from his mistakes and is sharing his story. Ian, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. So, Ian, tell us a little bit about your background, your bio, and tell us a little bit about what happened.
So, I mean, it goes back to when I was a teenager. I had really I guess chased popularity in high school. I was that kid that was always like the center of attention. I threw the house parties, the tailgates for the sporting events. I was just like known throughout the school. And that developed kind of into me seeing that I could really make money off of my following and getting people to go to these events or parties. And plus, my parents didn't want to have like 300 kids at our house anymore every weekend. So I started booking little teen nights at Tuxedo Junction. Before I had owned it, I was renting it from Al, who was in the documentary. And they were very successful. I was making like $10,000 a month as a 16-year-old doing these parties. They were really well known. Kids were coming from all over Connecticut and like the New York towns. But you know, I got greedy and I wanted to take it to the next level. It was never just like enough to just be where I was at. I had so much drive and ambition. I wanted to go even higher, be like another one of those young entrepreneurs, like the next Mark Zuckerberg, anything of that nature. And so, long story short, I started raising money and got into shows, concerts, like at different arenas as a promoter. And that kind of like takes me down this whole path of meeting all these types of people and booking these shows and getting into some trouble. And then that results in me going back to where I started, working at Tuxedo Junction, taking it over as the owner, and turning it into this like EDM mecca in Connecticut.
It sure was a mecca. I remember seeing that bad boy everywhere, and I'm like, man, because I had moved from Danbury and I still saw it everywhere. It was like the place to be, and I was like, who is this person? What is going on? I need to go back because when I was in Danbury, it was the old, basic club, and when Ian took over, it became this like the mecca, as he said.
Yeah, I mean, I fixed it up and started booking like these large worldwide acts that you would never expect to play in like little old Danbury, Connecticut, which is like the coolest part about it. These are acts that would play like headline New York City shows, and we had them right here in Danbury. I mean, like acts like Steve Aoki were going to the gym at the Edge, and people just they love that, and they love that they could see it right in their hometown for like $20.
So, you had this high life. Was there ever a time where you felt like anxiety from it all, nervous from it all?
I think from the period of like 2014 to 2016, I was under like an immense amount of pressure every day, especially when you owe significant amounts of money. That kind of like gets to you, and you have people calling your phone and they're asking you where their money is, and especially when those people are your close friends. mixed in with kind of like me not having that intention to lose anyone's money. And I was just so confident that everything would make money. So I was under every day immense amount of pressure, anxiety. As you can see in the documentary, I was on the heavier side, which would be an
Hmm.
understatement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a very hard life to live.
Can you? I was watching the documentary. Can you tell us about it was the what do they call the skis? The skis. You wanted
The
a
jet
jet
skis.
ski. Yeah, yeah. What was tell us about that? The jet ski. You just had to have a jet ski. That was that
Uh,
like the high mark.
we went to Key West, and me and my friends, and I went on a jet ski for the first time. I'm like, wow, this is great. So we were kids and we had the money, and we went back to Danbury and bought jet skis. And it's kind of interesting, the jet ski thing, because the local papers and the government always brought up, ah, he bought jet skis, and you listen to fraud cases and this and that, and you're normally hearing that the people like put their kids through school, they bought houses, they bought cars. But with me, like, the whole story was just about jet skis, and it kind of just goes to show like that kid aspect to the whole thing. And it's like, okay, there's $500,000, over $500,000 at play here, and the only thing being talked about is jet skis, which are $20,000. Where did the rest of the money go? And I think that kind of leaves like a lot of questions, especially when you actually see in the documentary that I did book concerts, that the acts, where would that money have came from to book acts?
Right. Absolutely. You said you spent was it 36 months in federal prison, and today we're talking about our past mistakes and things of the past. Did you ever use that time, or did you use that time to kind of think about what am I going to do for the future, and what if I can go back and change? Is there something that I would change?
I think prison was only good. It's different in everyone's scenario. I mean, for me, it was only good for me to have like a physical glow up that helped me like lose the weight. And
Hmm.
then it also gave me like that required like time I needed away from Tuxedo Junction, because knowing me, I'm so headstrong and I don't give up. So I would have still, had I not gone to jail, I'd probably still be sitting here trying to make Tuxedo Junction work. I mean, the pandemic probably would have been the end of it, but
Yeah,
it would have been a
absolutely.
lot of years of just trying, me doing that, and trying to make it work. It wasn't really until, I mean, even when I was in prison, I was like, okay, I'm going to get out. I'm going to own another club. I'm going to finish what I started. And when I got out, I did a couple articles in the paper talking about that. And I was very gun ho about trying to make that work. And then it wasn't until like way later on, maybe like a year after, like right before we started shooting for the doc, that it kind of like really hit me. It's like it gave me like full perspective on the whole situation that I didn't have before.
Right, right. I think Elizabeth had a question also she wanted to ask you.
Well, was it fraud that you went to jail for?
Yeah, so what the feds do is they kind of like overcharge you, so that way it encompasses everything, so that way they can have one thing stick at least. So there was 15 counts. I beat like 7 of them. They were not guilty verdicts, and or I'd beat 8 of them, and then there were 7 charges of between money laundering and wire fraud.
Hmm.
And you were only 19. How old were you when this was going on?
So when this first started, I started collecting money when I was 17. So this started before I was even 18. And that period of fraud happened between like when I was like 18, and it was literally the year I was 18, because tuxedos, and the doc makes it pretty clear, had nothing to do with the fraud that a lot of the papers had kind of got wrong over the years. I think it does a great job telling like the whole perspective and the timeline, because and it really humanized me, and people didn't realize like that whole life before it all. People just kind of see like that one part in the paper that says, "Ah, he scammed his friends."
Hmm. Hmm.
Are you still friends with them?
I mean, I talked to some. People have mixed feelings. A lot of the kids that were initial investments didn't really lose money. They lost like fake money, where it was just like the interest that they thought they would get. So like had they put in like $5,000, they might have been repaid that, but they thought they were owed like $10,000 because of this like imaginary interest rate. So there's a lot of scenarios like that, and people might still hold grudges, but at the same time, we were kids. When you look at the scheme of things, $5,000 to a 16-year-old in the larger scheme of life really isn't that big of a deal. Like, I personally had lost a lot of money too. with other people, other shows. Like you hear about Dave Osei and John Roble in the documentary. And I think it's really powerful that the doc shows, these guys declined to be interviewed. And I think that just says a statement in its own right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that must have been for such a young, I mean, you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way around that. You were just a kid. So, and was anyone guiding you?
No, I was very headstrong. I mean, like I got some guidance from like Al, not even financially, just like about like the ins and outs of the clubs. Like he taught me how to like run a club and all that, but kind of like the promotion aspect, booking the shows, dealing with money, that was all me. Like had I gotten the money and then sat down with an accountant and said, "This is what I have," and went to like a some type of business person that could help me with investments. Like you look at the options now, I could have taken that money, went to a bank, got a credit line on that money, and then returned that other money and then just risk the bank's money. Or I gotten credit cards. There could have been so many things I could have done. I could have went into properties, but I was just so headstrong on these events, and these parties, and trusting other people, people like Dave Osei and stuff like that with these shows. And it got out of control very quickly. It was such a short period of time. It was like a 6-month period of time this was all going on.
Well, it's just, you know what? No matter hearing your story, I have to commend you for being such a business person at such a young age. I mean, you have you have something that a lot of people don't have. You have determination.
Thank
So
you.
when you say headstrong, don't say it like it's a bad thing.
I think it just needs to be like guided ambition.
Mm-hmm.
If
Exactly.
someone's like if you have the right people in your circle, like if you say like that's why I excelled fast at Whole Foods, because it's like it's company oriented where it's like there's an end goal. So then I can streamline myself and move mountains to get to that end goal. That's kind of like how I operate. So right now, when I'm looking at like my future now and bringing like different people, like say it's like a literary agent or like a producer or something, those people can kind of like guide my ambition and bring it into something positive.
Right. So before we talk about maybe some of your future goals, I must say that one thing that I picked up in your documentary was that you used to do plays in theater. Was that?
Yep, I was in I did musical theater camp, was a big theater kid. And then in
Yeah.
high school, I was in all 4 plays. And I actually used to do the cast party at our house
Of
at the end of
course.
the show.
Of
Yeah,
course.
every
Yeah.
summer we'd put this big catering, like wedding tent in our yard and have
Uh-huh.
300 people, get the porta potties, a DJ, dance floor. It was really cool.
Yes.
Um,
What
Danbury
very
High School is known for their plays really well.
what
Mm-hmm.
lenient parents you had.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, they were cool. They definitely, they definitely enabled like that sense that I had that freedom and independence and everything. But I think it made me into the person I am today. I can't take that back.
Yes. We are two people who have the love of the theater. We are actors ourselves. And so as soon as it said theater on the screen, I was like, interesting. Wonderful.
Awesome.
What are some of your future goals and your future plans?
So, a couple of different things I'm in the works on. I think definitely I want to. There's so much more to the story to be told. You
Mm-hmm.
couldn't possibly tell it in an hour, and people have tons of questions. There's way more to the story, so I think it deserves to be like a TV miniseries,
Okay.
like a 6 or 8 episode series on TV, because you just have so many components. But that's not like something that I can really make a career of. Like that's a one time, people see like this party aspect. Like my brand can't be about the partying and all that, because that only goes so long and a lot of people associate to the past. So it's not like I could sit here saying, okay, I'm going to go into events, which I could probably be successful in. I could throw a couple parties, people would be skeptical. It's a high risk, and but that's not really the direction. And like when the doc came out, I was like, okay, maybe I can make a platform, get back into parties, let's get something going. And then, it was good to have like that mentor base here that, like branders or whoever's working with me and saying, no, we need to take this in this direction. So to answer your question, I think I'm going to move into like that public speaking realm. And really, I think my story is unique where I'm like the first of my kind that can really resonate with a younger crowd, like that high school, college crowd, where I can go to these schools, I could tell my story, and I can really go into the depths of like the effects of chasing popularity and social media and like chasing likes, and the power of lying, and that applies to everything like relationships and finances and everything like that, and really getting that guidance. And a lot of kids, I think, like you see these shows like 13 Reasons Why, Degrassi, anything like that, and they broach those subjects, but you don't really have that real life. Like no one's really talking about the really important stuff, like how this person's feeling in this relationship, or what, or even like business stuff. Because there's plenty of kids out there that are like me. It's like I see all the time. People have reached out since the doc came out about getting into business or any advice, this and that. So there's definitely a need for that. And you see, like at schools, there's all these business clubs,
Hmm.
DECA, all these different types of things, and opportunities that kids, I think they could resonate to. Like you guys have heard of like Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So he's someone that wouldn't necessarily like go to a high school to talk to these kids. It's just a whole different generation, a different bracket. Whereas like my story kind of resonates with kids, to a very certain degree.
Right. What about a book? Any interest in writing a book?
Yeah.
Elizabeth
So
and I have some books out as well. So yep.
yeah. So what happened like in prison? I was very gun ho about writing a book. I read Jordan Belfort's book and kind of like developed. I liked his style of writing, just like that thought where like you're writing a line and then you're writing like what your thought was in your head at the time, and it had like a nice style to it. So I developed like the first three chapters and I thought they were bad, so I ripped them up, and then I really like dove in more, and I made new ones, and I had a query letter and I queried a bunch of agents, and I got a couple of responses, but eventually they declined, and a lot of it was I didn't have any like relevant press going on, anything like that. I had like an old Vice article from 2015, and I kind of didn't really have like a closure to my story. It was like, okay, I just got out of prison, but is that really like your closure, you know?
Hmm.
And then now, um, there's kind of like there's a little bit closure. Like I'm into my second act now. I'm young, and I'm sure I'm gonna have more acts down the road. But there's, there you have that HBO documentary, you have a possible TV series, and I think now is like the right time to get into that book. I have a call with a literary agent on Monday, and we'll see where it goes. Whether it's I'm writing the book or there's a ghostwriter writing the book. I think there's definitely a story to be told, and I
Hmm.
think it's really like up to like a literary agent to like believe in the story and see, okay, which direction are we going with this, because there's so many directions you can go into with this type of thing.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm very curious though, when all of this came down and you knew you were going to prison, what was your state of mind?
I mean, I never really thought I was going to prison. I thought I was always the person that was just like, let's wing it. I was always just like, I was a band-aid person. I'd always just put a band-aid on. It was never like fixing the root problem. It was just getting to the next day. So, like the going to prison was my own doing because I was traveling out of state while on bond to go to the casino, and the casino was a big thing like that the doc never gets into, which is another reason why it needs to be more of a series. And so I was going out of state, and my friends that were working with me at the club had ratted me out because they wanted to take over the club, and the whole thing kind of backfires with them. But anyways, that really upset the judge, and I get his perspective. I also get my perspective of why I was going to the casino, because I had no funding. I was trying to pay these artists so my reputation didn't get ruined at the club.
Hmm.
Was it the right way to do it? No. Did I feel like that's what I needed to do at the time? Yeah, given the circumstances, I wasn't just going to roll over. And I had to ultimately pay the price for that in the end.
That must have been quite a shock to you.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, my attorney was saying they were thinking like a year, or we were really still fighting for house arrest. We didn't know which direction it would go in. I think that had the casino thing not happened, I might have just gotten like house arrest or probation or maybe a year. I think going to trial definitely helped in my case because it gave the judge a whole perspective of me. Whereas like had I pled guilty, I don't know if you watched any of the other episodes, but I talked to that guy Syed that's in one of the episodes.
Hmm.
and he just got sentenced to 5 years in prison, kind of like a similar story, but that was more time than me, and he had pled guilty.
Wow.
So I learned so much about the legal system, going through trial, everything. And I think that also plays to like that public speaking route, because the day I testified, there was I testified for 2 days, and like the entire Yale school like internship or law class came in and like packed the courtroom. And like these kids were coming up to me after, they're like, "Wow, great job," and they were talking to me and asking a lot of questions and stuff. Um, so I think there's definitely that interest there.
And let me ask you, how did your parents handle this?
My mom was very upset, like throughout the whole thing. My dad came every day. My mom came like 75% of it, but they were very upset. I mean, when they see their son getting trashed in the papers every day, you'd be pretty upset too.
Hmm.
Oh, of
Absolutely.
course. But they stood behind you anyway.
Yeah, I mean the week before the doc came out, my mom was kind of like on edge, and because the doc could have went either way, we kind of had to trust HBO to do the right thing and tell both sides of the story. But they
Yeah.
could have easily like spinned it around and just been all like negative. And I think that's what a lot of people were nervous about. But now that it came out, it's clearly not that, and it gives the reader and the viewer the option to form an opinion. It doesn't say what they think.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that because, we have to keep considering that you were really young, very, very young. So that you were so headstrong and you wanted to make money at that point, and you did. I think that's something to be admired. Maybe there's the downside, of course, but
Mhm.
a lot of this sounds like, you were headed in the right direction, just needed guidance.
Right.
Agreed.
I've already said in my head, he's not guilty. So,
Oh, thank you.
Ian, when you came out of prison, did you take that ride past Tuxedo Junction and maybe sit outside on that bench and give it a look?
Yeah, I mean, I walk by it a lot. My apartment's like right near there. It's just a vacant building. The mayor had bought it just so like another club couldn't go into it.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, like I said in the doc, the Tuxedo Junction days, that chapter's ended. But
Yeah.
it was cool going back there, filming there. We actually had filmed in front of the Danbury prison that I was at for a couple months too, but that never made it into the doc. But it's an historic part. I mean, I did an interview with I-95 radio, and we were talking about just their because they had felt like I may have like hijacked the reputation of tuxedos, but I was like, well, that's your reputation for their generation, and now I've made a new reputation for mine, because like the younger crowd would never have known about the rock shows that used to play there. I mean, it
Hmm.
was a staple. It was a club that used to compete with Toad's Place, booking all these large acts. But there's multiple errors for tuxedos, and I think when it goes back in the history books, people are really going to see like how great of a place it was. The videos there, you don't really see like video footage from it years ago out
No.
there, because that didn't exist. So now
Hmm.
it kind of dies with me and what I did there.
Hmm. Hmm. I did see that they were talking about maybe turning into some kind of like theater or something. That would be kind of cool.
Ah,
Did you
they're
hear
never gonna turn it into a theater.
that?
That building wasn't worth a cent. They paid like 450,000 for it.
Wow.
The roof was collapsing. The piping's messed up. It's a shell. It was
Yeah.
just a warehouse. But the town says a lot. They have the News Times writes a lot of different things. I mean, if you just read the articles that they wrote about me, even like the week before the doc came out, when the trailer came out, the headlines were still about jet skis and stealing all this money. And then when the doc comes out, you don't get a follow-up article saying, wow, we may have gotten this whole story wrong for the last 5 years.
Hmm.
But that's just how the town is.
Right. So you said you did some writing while you were in prison. Is there anything else you did to pass the time?
I mean, I really just I did a lot of working out and watched TV. When I was at the camp, the prison camp, I played a lot of sports like softball, basketball, running, tennis, anything like that. Played a lot of cards. It was just like I had been working every day for like the past previous year, so it was like a nice break. It was time away, kind of just like chill out and not do anything.
Well, that's very odd way to put it, though. It was a nice break.
Hey, it was a needed break, you know. Sometimes time heals everything.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that is. I'm very. I'm just impressed
Yes.
that that's how what you did.
Thank you.
So,
I'm
how
op-
do how do you support yourself now?
So I work for Whole Foods. I've moved up to an assistant manager position, and I do some marketing on the side for Al's Peach Wave. Al in the dock, he owns Peach Waves now, so I help him with that.
uh,
But Whole Foods is my main career. And people think grocery store, but it's actually a great company to work for. Great benefits, great pay, and it's owned by Amazon, so you can't really beat that.
yeah, yeah. I love Peach Wave. I
Awesome,
might I have to come down sometime.
definitely, yeah.
Yes. So we're talking about today and don't dwelling on past mistakes. And one thing we do here at the show is we identify one quote that goes well with our theme. And so the quote this week is, don't dwell on what went wrong. Instead, focus on what to do next. Spend your energy moving forward together towards an answer. Elizabeth, what does that mean to you?
Well, it seems to me that this is a perfect thing for Ian because he needed to amass a group of people that could see his energy and his enthusiasm and keep him on the straight and narrow. You know what I mean? And so I find that if you surround yourself with the right people, you're going to move forward.
Right.
And, having had the wrong people surround me, on so many occasions, uh, I can see where things can be more successful if you let yourself have help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For
What about
me,
right, right? What about you, Ian? Don't dwell on what went wrong. Instead, focus on what to do next. You're already doing that.
I mean, yeah, I think it kind of like what Elizabeth said. I needed this documentary to come out to really for everyone to get the whole story, to see the drive, see the potential, and now it's just up to like me putting together that team that like really believes in the story and all the good things that can come out of it. Because there was so much bad, but it's about what you like do with that bad that you can turn into something positive, and the foundation's there to do a lot of great things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very
I completely believe that that's possible for you.
hmm
Great things.
yes.
Thank you.
You're very charming, and
Another thing that we do here on the show is we do a pet peeve. We identify a pet peeve that we have and we try to work it out. So this week, my pet peeve is people who don't admit that they're wrong. You have to admit you're wrong if you want to move forward. That's my pet peeve. I'll work on it. I'll get over it. Elizabeth, what about you? Pet peeve of the week?
I gotta say, this is just a little different, a little take on it. This week, I had to go out and the shopping and stuff like that. And I have to say, everyone was so pleasant.
Hmm,
I could not find a pet peeve this week if I,
good. That's good. So good.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Might as well not complain when every single person I talked to was as pleasant as the day is long.
Well, Ian, do you have a pet peeve?
I would say, and it relates to my story, kind of people judging a book by its cover and not
Absolutely.
really. I would want to like get all the information before an opinion's formed, especially in like this day of social media. Like your words can really affect someone. Like if you think about what people say online, you hear about like teen suicides, you hear about a lot of stuff, and that's all based online. Like you whatever you put out there could really affect someone's day. It could change everything. So you just want to be like really mindful of that. And that plays a lot into my case. Had I not been this like tough skinned, thick skinned, things could have turned out differently for me too, because there was just a lot of hate out there.
Mm-hmm. Well
There,
said.
you're right. There's a lot of hate out there.
Well said. It's crazy how time flies when you have a great guest and great conversation.
I know. I
Ian,
want to. Don't. Let's just keep him.
Ian, do you have any closing words for people who have made mistakes in their life and want to move forward?
I would just say keep your head up and try to turn it into a positive. really like analyze the whole situation, see, well, how can I turn my mistakes into, a success? And everyone that's ever been successful in life always says you literally have to fail to succeed. So you have to do it. There's no way around that. Even the people that blow up overnight, they're going to fail along the way before they even become even more successful.
Mhm.
Yes, because if you're not, you can't fail if you're not trying.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Ian, if we want to learn about things that you're doing in the future, where do we go to learn all about Ian Bick?
So you can just check out my website, ianbick.com. Pretty straightforward. That links to all my social media. It's got the HBO Max documentary link on there. And we'll be updating it within the next couple of weeks to kind of like transition towards that new brand of me and getting into like what's next for me.
Absolutely. Ian, I wish you all the best
Me
moving
too.
Thank you guys
forward.
for having me.
Thank you. And keep us up to date, okay?
Yep, definitely be in touch too.
Take
Absolutely.
care.
Thank you. Well, I'm
Take care,
Shelby
guys.
Davis,
And I'm Elizabeth Petrojohn.
and this is If Not Now, When. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye bye.
Bye.